what is being used for. So let's start the Seder right now. You're coming in front of the table where you're going to lead a Seder. You organize yourself most properly if you can get either a special matzah cover, like the ones we have here, but even if not, you can just take a simple cloth or every type of a table cover and just fold it in a way that it will create 3 compartments where you're going to place a matzah in each one. We're going to name it. Each matzah has a name. The bottom one is the title Israel. The top one over it is going to be named Levi. And the one over top of the Levi is called Cohen. Cohen, Levi, Israel represents the 3 segments representing all in the entire Jewish family. This is the 3 matzot, which also corresponds to our 3 patriarchs, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the fathers of the Jewish people. And don't you worry, you mothers, because very soon we're going to talk about the 4 cups, which is obviously corresponding to our 4 mothers, the 4 matriarchs, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. But now we are still holding by the matzah. So what happens is you take with you a matzah. And the matzah is preferably if you can have an all matzah like you see it here in my hands. And you place it one on top of the other. Now that you have the 3 matzot already, and soon we're going to talk what you use it for, we are organizing the plate. The Seder plate has a proper organization which will allow you to recognize every item being used at its appropriate time. And let's organize it together. Imagine that you have a plate, you know the vow called segel, 2 dots and 1 dot beneath it in the center. Then imagine that you have 2 of those segels, a right, a left, center, a right, a left, and center, or a lower center. And this is really what the ka'ara is made of. On your right side, you are going to place the zroa. The zroa, this is the shank bone, or it can be any type of, usually sometimes people take the chicken neck, something which is made out of meat, but it doesn't have to carry a lot of meat. Matter of fact, some people specifically take the throat of the chicken, which has very little meat, and even that they remove. The reason for that roasted piece of meat on the right side is really only symbolic, as a visual representation what took place in the times of the temple when we ate the Korban Pesach, the Paschal sacrifice, which was a main part of the story of Passover. This is placed on the right. The truth is that item is not even going to be eaten throughout the Seder. This is only to be visual in front of us, so we always remember what we used to have and what we, God willing, will have once the temple is going to be rebuilt. On the left side of the Seder plate, you place an egg. The egg is a cooked dish, which, honestly speaking, it also represents an offering, a korban. In temple times, we used to come on Passover, visit the temple. Every Jew was a part of 2 distinguished offerings. One was the Paschal sacrifice, but it was also an offering called Korban Chagiga. Chagiga means the festival offering, which was brought separately of the Paschal sacrifice. Now, we are placing that same korban, the festival offering, represented by an egg. We're going to wonder why an egg? Why don't you put another piece of chicken on the left. So our sages tell us, because we also want to remember what we are missing by not having the temple. Not having the temple, the centrality of the temple and its services is so, so crucial and important to Judaism that if we don't have it, we feel like mourners. We feel like we have lost something and we always yearn for its return. And if you recall, either you read it or if God forbid you had experienced that, the food for a mourner coming home from a funeral, the first meal is always traditionally an egg. The egg is round and circle, reflecting the circle of life and so on. So associate some level of mourning into the high spirit of the holiday in what our sages instituted to commemorate again the what? The Korban Chagiga, the festival offering, by placing an egg on the left side of the Seder plate. Also, the reason this is cooked is to differentiate between the offering of the holiday and the Paschal sacrifice. The Paschal sacrifice could only be prepared roasted. You weren't allowed to cook, you weren't allowed to bake it, you weren't allowed to fry it. Versus the Chagiga offering, if you want to eat its meat, you could have used it and cook it and prepare it whatever way you desire. So therefore, we differentiate by placing a cooked dish on the left and a roasted small bone shank or a chicken neck on the right. So one represents that offering which has to be roasted, and the other represents the offering which can be prepared whatever way you like. So now we have the two items on the right and on the left of the Seder plate. We are moving to the third, which is in the middle center. Here we are going to place the maror, the bitter herbs, which is going to be eaten specifically to remember the bitterness of our ancestors during the enslavement in Egypt. Interesting is that in temple times, the maror was a part of the Paschal sacrifice combination, and there was a biblical requirement. Today, we are eating maror just to commemorate the original bitter herbs, which was eaten at the first Passover in Egypt, and it was always eaten together with the Paschal sacrifice. Then you move back to your right side of the Kahara, and here you're going to place the famous, known, delicious charoset. Charoset is a mix of apple, pears, dates, figs, nuts, cinnamon, everyone with their custom. Even Maimonides, the Rambam, wrote a recipe in his book for the charoset. He says that you should place in it the species which the Jewish people are compared to. Like if you read the Song of Songs, they are compared to the beautiful apple or to a fig. This is the kind of species that you mix in that charoset preparation. But really the charoset is more importantly than its mix in its taste is really its look. Because the look of the charoset looks like mortar, which is being used to create bricks, which was the main task of the enslavement in Egypt, was to make bricks. That was their biggest job there. So to somehow commemorate not only the hard work, which is the maror, the bitter herbs, but also with what type of work we were involved, is what we are placing the charoset, the look like mortar, to remind us the bricks which we had prepared, and we worked very hard during this very difficult period. This charoset is specifically also used to dip in later when we're going to eat the maror, we're going to dip the maror in the charoset. And there are usually two reasons explained in the Talmud. One is that the bitter herbs, I guess of its original time, had a certain poison, what you wanted to remove it, and it was removed by dipping the maror into the charoset. And also because ultimately every bitter situation leads ultimately to something sweet and even sweeter, and there is no bitter per se. Bitterness is combined together with sweetness. Then you move to the left, and there you place another vegetable called the karpas. Karpas is a vegetable, which the only reason we place it on the Seder plate is, as we're going to see soon, we're going to eat from it towards the beginning of the Seder. And the purpose for eating from it is simply that we should ask, the children should be enticed and inspired to ask questions. And the question is going to be, why are we eating a vegetable before we started the meal? Usually the vegetable salad comes together with the meal. You're not holding by no meal and you're already serving vegetables. So therefore, hopefully they would encourage them to ask more questions, ultimately to the question of what happened, why are we tonight? And we can relate to them the story of the Exodus, which is the main motto and the main theme of Pesach night, telling the fact that we were once slaves and we were brought out miraculously by Almighty God, who took us out from there and made it into the people that we are. Then at the bottom center, you again place the maror, the bitter herbs. This is the bitter herbs that we are going to eat a second time. And this is known as the korech, the Hillel sandwich, that we are going to use the maror for a second time when we are going to eat the maror together with matzah. Not like the first maror, which was eaten all on its own. The second maror is eaten together with matzah to commemorate how things were done during temple times. And in the times of the Bet HaMikdash, in the times of the temple, we used to eat matzah together with the meat, together with maror, and that's why we are doing it the same way today. So now you have the three matzah. The Seder plate is all organized in front of you, and we are ready to start the Seder. You need to have a good bottle of wine, preferably that the wine should be red wine, not white wine. Red wine is the more preferred type of wine, which also reminds us other things which happened in Egypt, which, like I said before, the night of the Seder is a combination of these two aspects relating to the enslavement and at the same time to the freedom that we had experienced once we came out of enslavement. And this combination of perhaps these two opposite experiences is what we are playing through throughout the evening. And the red wine, even wine is joyful and tasty. Our sages tell us we should remember that our children were slaughtered by Pharaoh, spilling their blood, and that's what the red is usually associated with. Now, you start the evening, once you are all organized, you have the wine, you have the matzah, we had the items for the plate. Obviously, in the kitchen, the chicken soup is getting cooked, the gefilte fish was already prepared, that's in the fridge, and all the other goodies that we are all waiting for is only going to come out later. We are starting the Seder. The first thing that the Seder starts is like every Jewish festival and every Friday night and Shabbos day's meal. This is with the famous Kiddush. We are first declaring the sanctification of the day. That's what the word Kiddush means. It borrowed from the concept of Kedusha, which means holiness and sanctity. Every time you start a meal, you want to first declare that today is a holy day. And that's what the Kiddush is all about. We have a booklet. Very important you get a hold of that book. It's called the Haggadah. The Haggadah, the Passover Haggadah, was printed in hundreds and in thousands of editions. If you don't have Haggadah, you probably want to go. I can suggest you one website called Chabad.org that you can download a free Haggadah, print it out, so you have it in front of you, because this is the book you're going to need during this evening of the Seder. So if you look in the Haggadah, you have the Kiddush, which is a special Kiddush for the holiday. In addition, this year, that it's the Kiddush for the holiday, it is also the Kiddush for the Shabbos. It is a Friday night Pesach. So the Kiddush text is actually a combination of Shabbat and Yom Tov. The holiday and the Shabbos are all joining into a very special text of Kiddush, which shares those two aspects. But in addition of being Kiddush, listen to that, our sages especially instituted that the night of the Passover Seder, each and every Jew, man and woman and child, shall drink 4 cups of wine. And it doesn't mean that you are taking 1 cup after another and you say, okay, I had my 4 cups. If you drink 4 cups without interruption, halachically, which means according to Jewish law, it is considered as if you drank simply 1 cup of wine. You did not have 4, even though it was 4 cups, but there was nothing that you did on each cup to represent and to have him emphasized as his own unique cup. And therefore, we're going to go see the order of the 4 cups and what is being said over them. So the first cup is actually the Kiddush cup. So it's not just a Kiddush. It is Kiddush, which is now one of the 4 cups of wine. And therefore, interestingly, the custom is that tonight, the night of Passover, everyone makes Kiddush. Which I mean by that is that traditionally on Friday night or on a holiday, it is the head of the house or the host, which they make Kiddush, and everybody listens, answers Amen, takes a little sip of wine, and call it a day. Tonight, the Kiddush is not just a Kiddush. The Kiddush of Pesach night is one and the first of the 4 cups of wine, which everybody needs to drink. And therefore, everyone is going to fill up a cup, and everybody is going to say from the Haggadah, as much possible, the Kiddush, which is recorded, or at least listen to someone saying it, but you are going to have your own cup of wine. 2 very important things. What is considered a cup of wine? How much of wine do you have to drink? According to Jewish law, you should have a cup which holds the minimal of 3 ounces. This is the size of the cup. It should be holding minimally 3 ounces. And you should drink preferably the entire 3 ounces of wine, or at least the majority of these 3 ounces, which means 2 of it. But this is the minimal. You don't need to have 8 ounces cups, 10 ounces cup, 5 ounces cup. 3 is a perfect number, which is the halachic requirement number to fulfill the mitzvah of drinking 4 cups. Number 2, that cup of wine, you have to drink in a special manner, which means there is a condition how you should be positioned when you drink it. And our sages tell us you should position yourself leaning on your left, because that marks the expression of freedom, which I guess in the olden days, very significant people used to eat leaning on their left, feeling kind of relaxed and free, not enslaved, rushing on the moment. So again, the minimal is a revi'it in Hebrew, which is 3 ounces, or a cup, which is 86 gram, if you want to call it in Hebrew, which, by the way, the easy way to remember it is the gematria, the numerical value of the word cup in Hebrew, which is kos. Chaf is 20, vav is 6, samach is 60, so it's 86. It's 86 gram, which is about 3 ounces, 3.9, 2.9. And that is what you drink all at once, possibly, leaning on the left. And the main thing, it shouldn't be more than 3 minutes between the first sipping and the end of the last sipping of this 3 ounces. I think it's pretty doable. And if you have the right size of cup and prepared, you will be doing just great. And with that, we began our Seder by the first cup of wine and making the declaration of Kiddush. Remember that this year, because the first night is Shabbos, there's a special text also for Shabbos. But the second night, which is Saturday night, Motzei Shabbat, there is also a special text because we are combining the Kiddush for the second night Yom Tov together with Havdalah. Every Friday night, we make Havdalah. We make a declaration of separation between Shabbat and the weekdays. Even though we are not entering a weekday, we are entering another holiday, we still have to make Havdalah. The holiness of Shabbos is incomparable to the holiness of the holiday. So we are saying Havdalah mixed with Kiddush. And this is, by the way, all printed in the Haggadah that you have in front of you. Just make sure you follow the instructions so you know, and you make yourself a note that this year, at Saturday night, the second night, and I need to have a Kiddush mixed with Havdalah, just like on the first night, I had a Kiddush mixed with Shabbos. Yom Tov Kiddush mixed with Shabbos. We are holding now by step 2. We are going to go through 15 steps, okay? Step 2 is that we are going to wash our hands. And this washing is a ritual washing, which has to do with the step which follows step 2, the dipped vegetable in liquid. So let me go to step 3 for a moment, and then we're going to understand step 2. In temple times, they were very careful with the laws of purity and impurity. According to Torah law, a vegetable which is wet, which came in contact with liquid, has the potential to attract impurity, which meaning if your hands were at a funeral, or few hands were scratching somewhere, which made your hands now impure. If they touch a dry vegetable, the vegetable stays clean. If they touch and they come in contact with a wet vegetable, that vegetable had attracted that impurity. And don't ask me why, because nobody knows why. The laws of purity and impurity is those laws which are beyond human comprehension and understanding. So in temple times, because they were needing to eat certain foods in a sacred manner, like bringing fruit to the temple, and the priests were very careful to keep those laws. So therefore, before people had touched a vegetable or a fruit which was wet with liquid, they used to wash their hands. Today, we don't do it because there's no temple, there is less reason to be so careful. But tonight is a different night. Tonight, we are like in the temple times. Tonight is the night of freedom, the night of celebration, and therefore, before we are dipping the vegetable in liquid, which is step 3, we are going to first wash our hands, which is step 2. There is no blessing over the washing. You simply just washed your hand. You come back, you wash your hand 3 times on each hand. You go back to the table, and you are moving now to step 3. Step 3 is the karpas, which is take a vegetable, There is no size of how much of that vegetable you need to eat. Matter of fact, we are trying to eat less than an ounce of a vegetable because the only reason for that vegetable is, like I said before, that we are going to hopefully get the kids' attention by them wondering why vegetables now. And then you're going to start telling them because tonight is a different night. So what is it so different? And then you're going to get into a conversation and give them an opportunity to relay the story of the Exodus. So step 3, you take the vegetable. You dip it in salt water, which means water with just some salt in it. And that vegetable is now going to be a blessing recited over it, which is a traditional blessing you say whenever you eat vegetables. Baruch atah Hashem, borei pri adama, the creator of the fruit of the ground. And then you're going to eat from it. You do not need to lean. You're just going to eat from it. And that's going to be the fulfillment of step 3, the custom of karpas. After karpas comes step 4. Step 4 is the breaking of the middle matzah. As you remember, we started up our class that we have 3 matzot in front of us. And usually the one who leads the Seder at least is the one who has it. Not everybody needs to have the 3, but in every Seder you end up having a leader. The leader has in front of him the 3 matzahs. And the purpose for those 3 matzahs is as follows. Every Shabbat and every holiday, we make hamotzi and 2 loaves of challah. And the reason for that is because when the Jews were in the desert, every Friday they would get a double portion of manna, since on Saturday they weren't allowed to collect any of the manna. So to commemorate the miracle of the manna and the double portion of it, which came every Friday in honor of Shabbat, we also honor Shabbat and we honor every holiday by making the blessing of hamotzi, the blessing on the bread, over 2 loaves of bread. Tonight, we are going to do the same. We are going to have 2 matzah to make the hamotzi, then we're going to come later to the hamotzi. So that's why we need 2. But tonight, we are also having a 3rd one, because there is going to be 1 matzah that has its own purpose. The purpose of this matzah is to be broken when you say the Agadah on it. Because a broken matzah represents bread of poverty. And again, we want to remember the poor state that we were in Egypt. So we say the Agadah over a broken matzah. But if you break one of the 2, then you're not going to have a double loaf of matzah, right? You're not going to have 2 full matzahs to make the blessing out. So therefore, you have 3. 2, you're going to be leaving for later to make the hamotzi, and 2 all matzah, like we make the blessing always, and 2 all loaves of bread. And then you have a broken one that on half of the broken one, you are going to say the Agadah on, and the Agadah should be heard or said over a broken piece of matzah called lechem oni, broken bread of poverty. Now, we broke the matzah, which is step 4. This matzah, we only need 1/2 to say the Agadah over. What do we do with the other half? The other half gets tucked away because this is going to be eaten later at the end of the evening. Before we're going to drink the 3rd cup, this is called the afikoman. The afikoman is the last piece of matzah, which in temple times, the Seder used to finish by eating. The last item on the table was the meat of the Paschal lamb. Today, we don't have a Paschal lamb, So we have a piece of matzah to commemorate that last piece of meat which was eaten together with matzah at the Seder night during temple times. And that gets tucked away. And obviously, again, to keep the kids up, there's a whole program of hiding it and looking after it and offering gifts and surprises for those who find it, just to keep the excitement going. Once you have the matzah broken, you're moving to step 5. And step 5 is when you start telling the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim. Obviously, we're not going to read it now. The story is in your Agada book, but I want to tell you the main parts of the story is the Manishtana. You say, hey, Lach Ma'anyo, you start, why are we having matzah? This is the bread of poverty, which our ancestors ate in Egypt. And then you are starting the story, and the story of the Exodus is very important to be told in a way of question and answer. Because when you respond to a question, it gives it more chance to relate to it and to reflect on it. And the question is, the ma nishtana alayla ze mikol haleilot. What is tonight different than any other night? And you ask this question and you mention a few of those differences, and then you're going straight to the answer, which is the story that Avadim Ayinu, we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt. Avadim Ayinu, leparo b'Mitzrayim, Avadim Ayinu, we were slaves. And then you mentioned that all types of kids are a part of the Seder. There's the wise boy, the wicked, the simple, the one who doesn't even know how to ask questions. And as the Rebbe, our Rebbe of blessed memory always said, don't forget about the 5th child. Who is the 5th child? The 5th child is the one who doesn't even come to the Seder, or he wasn't planning to come to the Seder, and you make sure to bring him over too, and he joins this beautiful experience. And then once you invite all children to come and sit around together, you start expanding on different verses from the Torah, the way they are explained, and literally it is what we call in English a crash course in the history of the Jewish people. You talk about Lavan and Jacob, starting with Avram. Avram was taken from a place called over the river. And then he had a son and he had his grandson, Jacob. And Jacob is finally coming down to Egypt. They're coming down, and you mentioned they only came down with a few. There were 70, and then eventually became this great nation. And the Egyptians had afflicted us. And you read all the way, this is the important to read it, all the way to the 10 plagues, because this gives you in a condensed, beautiful description of the history of our people. We know where we started. There's nothing greater for any human being to know where he comes from, what's our background, and then you know where you're heading to. You finish the story, you obviously sing and praise God. That's the famous song of Dayenu, Dayenu, Dayenu. Basically telling Rebbeinu Shloim, you did so much for us. If you would have only done 1%, it would have been great, but you did not more. And if you only do the 2%, it would also be great, but you did 3, you did 4. And we keep on mentioning more things that God did for us, which is the inspirational praise and thanksgiving. At that point, you mentioned the 3 important things, what we are doing tonight. Why is there a Paschal sacrifice, which they're skipping over the houses of the Jews during the plague of the firstborn? Why do we eat matzah? And why do we eat bitter herbs? The second cup is filled, and you are ready to say the first 2 chapters of the holiday Hallel. Hallel is what we say every holiday, which is basically sections from the book of Psalms, Tehillim, from chapter 115 till chapter 118. which talks about the greatness of God. That's what Hallel is. Hallel means praise. So Hallel was divided. The first two chapters of Hallel we say over the second cup. And now, you ready? You lift up the second cup and you make a special blessing called the blessing of the Geula, the blessing of the redemption. You say this blessing by concluding Baruch Ato Hashem Ga'al Israel, and everybody, men, women, children, each and every one again, holding a full cup, minimal 3 ounce, leaning on their left, are drinking that cup with his own Boreh Priya Gefen. Another time, each of the 4 cups is its own mitzvah. That's why each cup gets his own Boreh Priya Gefen, his own blessing over the wine. And now, the second cup is done. You are basically halfway through the Seder. At this point, we are moving on to the next step. We spoke about Kiddush, 1, washing our hands, 2, Karpas, the vegetable, 3, Yachatz, the breaking of the matzah, 4, and we spoke about the Agada, 5. We are holding now at step 6. Step 6, you are going to wash your hands again, but this time it's for real. What do you mean for real? Because we are going to have bread, unleavened bread, but it's bread. And every time before a Jew eats bread, you always wash your hands first, 3 times on each hand, and you make the blessing on the Tilat Yadayim. And after that, you don't talk until you actually eat matzah. So now we are all washing our hands. You washed your hands, you come back to the table, and now you're ready for step number 7. Step number 7 is actually one of the most important highlights of the night of the Seder. And this is the taking out the matzah. The matzah, even there's no temple, the matzah is still a biblical commandment to eat matzah the night of Pesach. This matzah also has a measurement. How much of matzah do you need to eat in order to fulfill the mitzvah of eating matzah? So in Jewish law, the eating of matzah is called a size of a kazait, an olive. An olive has a certain weight to it, and the weight of the olive is compared to the weight of a half of an egg. So without making you meshuga into how much eggs and to go and measure eggs and measure olives, I'm just simply going to tell you what is the measurement, what is the weight of matzah that everyone needs to have on Pesach night. When it came to wine, we said, what is the value of wine we have to drink? You remember? 3 ounces. 3 ounces is a revit. When it comes to eating the matzah, so this is something which is being discussed in very length by all the different sages to define exactly how much of matzah you need to eat. The bottom line is, when it comes to eat matzah according to the most common idea of matzah is to eat. You ready for that? 1 second. I want to get you the right one. And the right size of matzah is half of the egg. And therefore, tata, just give me a second. 28 gram of 20, basically an average egg is about 2 ounces, which is 56 gram. A half an egg is about 28 gram. So this is basically 28 gram. So basically it will mean to have also an ounce of matzah. So what we are going to do, if you have a regular round matzah, half of that is considered a perfectly amount of matzah that you needed to eat and to fulfill the mitzvah of eating. Either you count it as 27 gram, or if you want to count grams, so you don't want to count ounces, consider a half of the size of a matzah is enough and perfectly important, not just enough, to fulfill the mitzvah of the eating matzah on the night of Pesach. Here too, we have two brachot. We have the blessing of Hamotzi Lechem Min Haaretz, which is the blessing that you make a bread. But this is not just bread. This is actually a mitzvah more than eating bread. And therefore, you're going to make a special blessing, Asher Kideshanu B'mitzvotav V'tzivanu Al Achilas Matzah. For the mitzvah of eating matzah, and you lean on your left when you eat that kazait, the first amount of matzah, and by that you fulfill the great mitzvah. And you want to remember what it says in the holy books, in the Zohar HaKadosh, that matzah is a special dietary food which gives you the power of belief, of faith, and matzah is also healing. It's a refuah. So very importantly, the matzah, having in mind that by now fulfilling the great mitzvah of eating matzah. Following the matzah comes the next step, and this is the moror. You take moror, which is usually used as lettuce, or lettuce together with some horseradish, and that's what is really should be tasting bitter. And you make again a blessing, Asher Kideshanu B'mitzvotav, V'tzivanu Al Achilas Moror, and by that you fulfill the mitzvah of eating the bitter herbs. But this you don't eat leaning, because it doesn't make any sense. I'm experiencing bitterness, and I'm leaning on my left as a free person experiencing bitterness. It doesn't work. Make up your mind. Are you bitter or are you sweet? So therefore, by the moror, you don't lean. Following the moror, here comes an interesting rabbinic tradition called the koirech, or it's known as Hillel's sandwich. Even Mr. Sandwich came many years after Hillel, but before Mr. Sandwich was alive, there was a great rabbi by the name of Hillel. And Hillel, he said that when the Torah tells us in temple times that you should eat the flesh of the paschal sacrifice tonight, together with meat and together with bitter herbs, it means that they have to literally be eaten together as a sandwich. And to commemorate that mitzvah, let's have now a piece of matzah. Again, you want to take a kazait of matzah. Since it's only a rabbinic commandment, not like the first one, which is biblical, you can have even a little less than a half of matzah. But minimal, a third matzah you want to have, break it into two pieces, and in between the two pieces of matzah, you place that bitter herbs, the lettuce, and you eat them together. Here too, you're going to eat it leaning on your left. Usually we make a statement, a declaration before. What we are doing now is what Hillel did in temple times when he was eating the matzah and the moror combined together as once. At this point, we are holding Piri heavily into the Seder. We holding step one again was the Kiddush. Step two was the washing of our hands for the vegetable. Step three was the vegetable, the karpas. Step four was the breaking of the matzah, the middle one. Step five was the telling of the Agada. Step six was washing our hands again for the meal. Step 7 was the blessing Amotzi Lechem in Haaretz. Step 8 was the blessing Al Achilat Matzah. Step 9 was the bitter herbs, the maror. And step 10 was the koirech, the sandwich of Hillel. So we already went through 10 of the 15 steps of the Seder in less than 45 minutes. Now comes step 11. And this is after all a holiday and a celebration. And God wants us to enjoy the holiday. And not only to enjoy it mentally in our mind, but God wants that our body should also feel the enjoyment and the joy. And that's why he wants us to have a meal in honor of the holiday. Here comes step 11, which you set up the meal, Shulchan Aruch, and you eat fish and meat and chicken and whatever you have on your menu, the traditions of your Seder, enjoy and celebrate. From the Seder plate, so far we already used the vegetable, karpas, from the 6 items, right? We used the karpas, we used the bitter herbs. The bitter herbs were dipped in charoset. We forgot to mention it, but it was dipped in charoset. So there was 3. We already also used the vegetable of the plate, which is number 4 for the sandwich. The only 2 things we have left is the right side meat, which we're not going to use at all, and the egg, which many have the tradition, even though it's not required, to now have that egg being eaten, again, in remembering the special festival offering, which was used during the times of the temple. But we are moving on to step number 12. We've just finished eating. Oh, it was so tasty. Everything was so delicious. Oh, I feel so full. Oh, wait, you think you're full? Be careful, because now comes an important part of the Seder, step 12, and we want to eat now special matzah to commemorate the Paschal sacrifice, which was the ultimate and final dessert at the Seder. And therefore is what we are now taking out the afikoman, and we are eating that piece of matzah. Here too, important to eat, like I said before, the kazait of matzah. It should not be eaten more than 6 minutes. Better if you can eat it all in 3 minutes. And again here, leaning on your left. So what is the minimal amounts of matzah that one needs to eat Pesach night? Is 3 parts of matzah, 3 kazaits. One is when he fulfills the mitzvah of matzah, 2 by Hillel sandwich, 3 by the afikoman. So anyone who keeps his eyes in his head and wants to be ready knows that during the meal you don't overeat the matzah, because you still want to leave place for the afikoman, and therefore you're going to have enough matzah to eat later. Time to relax. If you can handle it, go for it. Okay, so now we ate the afikoman. By the way, the one who leads the Seder, he actually is going to eat more matzah than that. And I will tell it to you in short. The afikoman is not clearly by the sages if the matzah is to commemorate the meat of the Paschal lamb, or to commemorate the matzah which was eaten together with the Paschal lamb. So most people are going to eat 2 kazeitim of matzah for the afikoman, which basically they're going to end up eating 4 kazeitim of matzah during the Seder. Matzah, koirech, and 2 for the afikoman. Now you finish, we are moving to step number 13. Step 13 is that you fill up a cup of wine again. Now we are holding but wine number 3. And on that cup, like we mentioned before, every cup needs to have some declaration over it. It's not just drinking wine. On this cup, you're simply going to recite the grace after meal, Birkat Hamazon, benching, and finish benching. Each and every one, man, woman, and child, are going to lift up the cup again, drink it up with his own Borei Pri Gefen, leaning on the left. At this point comes the new additional part of the Seder, which really spiritually represents a whole different area of the Seder. Till now, we were eating and drinking, we were like kind of reliving the past. Now we're getting into the future, Mashiach's times. And this is being represented by first filling up a cup of wine for ourselves, but also for Elijah the prophet, which according to our tradition, the way it's recorded in by our prophets, he is the man who is going to broadcast, to inform the world of the coming of Mashiach. He is the angel of the covenant, which is always there at the circumcision. We make him a special chair. And he's also coming tonight, visiting every home. We open the door for him and we fill up a cup of wine for him. And once you fill up the cup of wine and you open the door and you said your prayers, which by the way, my friend, it's a very special time, very accomplished prayers. So you want to be prepared to ask good things, obviously from our spiritual livelihood. And that's what you do when you open the door for Elijah. And then you go back to your seat and you start reciting Hallel. This is step 14. Hallel is praises. Again, we finish up that section that we say every holiday of praise. We say some parts of the Saturday davening, which is also praise, like Nishmat kol chai tevarech shimcha, yishtabach shimcha lo'ad malkeinu. All these beautiful, amazing praises to God, which we pour our heart out with praise and song for this great opportunity of being Hashem's people and having yet the opportunity to celebrate freedom and the internal freedom. At that point, you finish the Hallel, you lift up your fourth cup, and you make a Borei Pri Gefen, and you drink it up. Then comes step 15. Step 15 means goodbye. You did good. That's step 15. No rituals. We are declaring next year in Jerusalem, Teshana Haba Yerushalayim, and that's when we complete the Seder. So you see, it's 8:30, and we just finished the entire Seder, not a minute passed. But I want to just for a moment remind ourselves and everybody who listens to the class that the night of Pesach is a very holy night. The gates of heaven are open to each and every one. Just like in Egypt, God revealed himself on Pesach, made himself open and available for all of us to see him and to feel the close attachment which he has with us and which we have with him. The same is when it comes Pesach every single year. It's not only that we are celebrating something of the past, we're not only celebrating something which happened so many years ago, somewhere. It is a celebration what happens now and today. Every year on the night of Pesach, Hashem takes us literally by hand that we have to see ourselves, as we actually say in the Passover Seder, as if we had left Egypt. Not something what only happened to our ancestors. We were the ones there and we are the ones out. Because the exodus of Egypt is a gift of essential freedom, which is always with us. And even though we are in all kinds of situations, including today, this is all circumstantial. It comes and it goes. Freedom is always with us. Do you remember 2 years ago, Passover? We couldn't even see children with their parents, neighbors with their friends, no public Seder, barely a private Seder. And what happened 2 years later? Everybody's going to be together with their families. Everyone's going to join back with their friends. What does it tell us? That whatever happened was circumstantial. It happens. And like eventually, with some patience and with Hashem's help, it disappears. One thing was never taken from us is the quality of freedom. It was given to us as a gift at the night of the Exodus. Until today, the fact that we are here and we are able to rejuvenate and come back to celebrate Pesach again as family and community, the fact that traveling is back. I was in New York yesterday. Believe me, the airports are mad, crazy. The whole world is flying everywhere. They are going here and they are going there, and cancellations and no cancellation. It's happening. What does it tell us? Freedom is essential. The other situations are conditional. We have to obviously hope and pray that Hashem should help people and Jews everywhere they are not to have to suffer through those circumstances, but that tonight we are concentrated on our essential quality. Every single human being, obviously every single Yid who came out of Egypt, is a free man. We are free women. We are free children. No one has any ultimate control over us. You can be in any condition and still able to connect yourself to something greater than you, to do something good, and to be a part of a whole free experience. And that's tonight. That's what we are celebrating. That's the gift of Passover. Time to pass over. Pass over. Don't just keep on trying to maneuver into the boundaries and to the barricades. You come to a barricade, don't try to figure it out and get permission and get a license and a visa until I'm going to go through that barricade. Just keep over, jump over, find yourself in a better place, and move on. This is the night of Pesach. Lashona Haba B'Yerushalayim, my friend. I want to wish you all, first of all, a happy and kosher Passover. You have to remember that Pesach also has some very important laws, which we spoke more about it on Shabbat in synagogue. And this is to get rid of your chametz. You can't eat. We only spoke tonight what we could eat and what we should eat. But there's a whole list that we are not allowed to eat called leaven. Anything which is made of flour and water, but it was not kept from matzah. You have to stay away 100% from it. Not eating no bread, no pasta, no pizza. And at the same time, not even owning it. You have to get rid of it. If you have some chametz in your house, you make sure you go on our website. There's a special contract you write. It doesn't cost you any money. Just write your name and your address, and you empowering Rabbi Farkash to facilitate a sale of chametz on your behalf. So it's not yours for 8 days, and then you might continue enjoying it after the 8 days of Pesach. Other than that, good log on our website for the whole schedule of services, and we're looking forward to celebrate together. If you know anybody who needs a Seder or matzah, Chabad is always the address here for you. We are here for you. Tell us what you need, and we're going to look to join together into our most amazing Yom Tov, and most importantly, we should be able to join Yom Tov the way it's meant to be, by the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu, speedily in our days. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much, everyone. Welcome. You want to schmooze, you can talk. It's all yours. I'm done. Bernat, you ready to get the chametz?
Tomorrow, 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock at my home.
Yes. Hey, Arnold said he had a Jewish
What?
lawyer. Arnold said he had a Jewish lawyer living across from him.
A Jewish lawyer.
Yeah, isn't that the same as a rabbi?
Are you mixing politics?
Isn't law the same thing? It's pretty much, right? You got to know the Jewish law.
Oh, that's what you mean. Jewish law, a lawyer.
Yeah, a little slow in the draw there.
Not you ready? You think you're able to afford to buy the chametz of all the Jews of the east side?
I don't know. And I got a special gift. I got a special gift for you tomorrow, so we'll see.
You're gonna give me? I'm giving you more than whatever you can give me. Believe me.
Oh,
I'm giving you the
no
chametz.
doubt about that.
The east side community. I have chametz from Canada. I have chametz from Montana. All kinds of people empowered me to sell their chametz. You're gonna be very rich for 8 days, but whatever you use, you're gonna have to pay back. So you better be careful.
Rabbi, I'm giving you love. Okay, what can be better than love? Right?
Better than love. Now you're talking spirit. Very good. Anyone has any questions for Pesach before Pesach starts? Do you have any questions, anybody? To the rabbi? You good? Arnold, I can't hear you. Arnold, you muted. You want to say something? You have to unmute yourself first. Oh, now you can talk.
No, I just want to wish those of you who I will not be seeing at the Seder to wish you Chag Sameach.
Thank you.
You should all have a good Pesach, a good Seder, and a freilige Pesach.
Thank you very much. Beautifully. Thank you very much. Thank you, our new friend from Chicago. Time for you to go to bed.
Champagne.
Champagne. I'm sorry. Champagne, Illinois. Enjoy yourself. Have a good night and a happy Passover all the way down there in the Illinois.
Yeah, Illinois.
Regards. Yes, thank you. Okay, we will talk with each other. Leitraot, Laila Tov. I'm going to welcome my family. All the best. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Laila Tov.
Laila Tov.
Laila Tov.
I would hope.